7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Okay, so we have reached the end. So this is a recap of Umbrella Academy Season 2, Episode 10. So it opens in 2006. It's Ben's funeral. And you would think that at this time, parents would be more sympathetic to the kids, but not Mr. Hargraves. He's like, you guys suck. All of that training and fighting, and you guys, you're not working together, and you're basically, he blamed him for Ben dying, like, because of your negligence. One of your siblings have died, and so of course they already feel like crap. At this point, they're still kids. And so he storms off. And so eventually they start arguing amongst each other, themselves. And the rest of them kind of scatter. And Klaus summons, because Klaus can talk to the dead, summons Ben. And he talked for a minute. And Ben was like, I have to go back because, I have to go into this light. And people were telling me I need to go into this light. And Klaus is like, oh, it'll be there it'll be there, it'll always be there, so you don't have to leave right now. And Klaus he wasn't ready to let go. So now we go to, I guess, the current time, which is the past, which is odd to say, which is way back in 1963, where they're sitting around watching the news, and of course they're talking about Kennedy's assassination, and now they're all wanted. So Vanya is wanted for the murders of the FBI agent. Diego was wanted because he's apparently a Cuban exile who escaped the mental institution. Luther is wanted because he was affiliated with the mafia and probably was involved in some criminal activities. Allison is wanted because she is apparently the person, she instigated that race riot in front of that diner, where Raymond ended up getting beat down. And of course Klaus, he was a known cult leader and tax evader. Okay, and so they flashed the photo of number 5, but they said that he is a possible hostage of the other 6. So that was a tee. So now they're trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? What's our next move going to be? We don't have a device to get us back to 2019. We have the authorities looking for us and the commission gunning for us. Like, what are we going to do? And so while they're going back and forth, Klaus was like, well, we can go to Iceland and kind of hide out. And number 5 was like, you can't hide from the commission. Like, they will find us wherever we are. So it was no point even starting the whole running game because we're going to be running forever. So Vanya breaks away and she calls to check on Sissy. She didn't get an answer, but she was getting flashes of something was wrong with Harlan. And so she grabbed the keys. Initially, I thought she was going to just leave with the car. But she went down and she talked to them. And she basically told them that, she explained to them that she had saved his life. And she thinks that she has done something to him. And that he's now in trouble. And she has to go and see what's going on with them. And they were pretty much like, we can't, like, our necks are in the noose right now. We got all those people coming for our neck, and we still need to figure out how we're going to survive and what our next move is going to be. And we just can't divert our attention and our resources right now. And so she obviously felt, some kind of way, because she really wanted her family to stick with her and to help her out. But they're like, we can't do that right now. So she got into the car, and then one by one, they eventually jumped in the car with her. So Klaus got in, and she was able to talk to Klaus and relay the message that Ben had. And the message was, he was always afraid to go into the light, and that Klaus can stop blaming himself. And so Klaus started laughing. He was like, that jerk had me thinking that I had kept him from something all this time. And it was like, no, he wasn't ready to go. And so Allison and Diego eventually gets in the car, and then number 5 jumps in. Luther ends up having to get in the back, and this big ass is weighing the car down. So now they're driving down the road with the back of the car dragging on the damn ground. And what they didn't notice was that the Swedish guy, the guy who had already lost 2 of his brothers, he's still in the ice cream truck. So now he's following them. Okay, so they make it to, so they pull up to the farm, and they can clearly see that there's an issue here. There's like some cold weather situations going on where there's snow on the ground, and just in that location by the barn. And of course, they can see all of these lights and this stuff going on in the barn. And so they go into the barn, and they can see that Harlan is levitating off the ground, like the power. He can't control it. And so Vanya is now trying to talk to him to try to help get this whole situation under control. Klaus apparently heard something. I don't know what drew his attention. So he looks out the barn, and he see way out in the field, he see the handler and Lila. So eventually he calls the others over, and he tells, and number 5 and Diego decide they're going to go out to confront them. And so they go out, and they start talking, and Lila made some snarky remark to him, and number 5 was kind of looking at her like, it's like clearly she has a personal issue with 5. And then Diego says something, she was like, I wouldn't even waste my time being mad at you. And so they start talking, and he said, how he double crossed her and how he set her up to fail. And she was like, well, you set yourself up to fail. Da, da, da. But she was like, anyway, I'm here on official business. I'm, as the head of the commission, it's my job to seek justice for the person who killed the board members. And so Diego was like, what are you talking about? We didn't kill anybody. And so number 5 said, well, that's not entirely true. So Diego's like, what the hell did you get us into now? And of course, number 5 was like, well, I did it to save our family, but our family is so screwed up. Like, they had their little moment. And so Lila says something else to 5, and he's still like befuddled. Like, I mean, he can understand that she doesn't like him, but it feels personal. He's trying to like, what? Like, what's going on? So anyway, he ended up saying, well, it's 6 against 1. Like, what are you guys gonna do? And then we see why she put in a call in the last episode to have all of the agents to be pulled from the field, because all these agents with their own time traveling devices, there's about 200 of them. They just started popping up all over the field. So now they're like, oh, okay. So Diego looks at number 5. Is like, okay, so what do we do? Number 5 was basically, I mean, we can stand here, fight, and die now, or we can try to run and die later. But either way, we dead. All right. So, so they decide. So they decide to run. So Vanya is still in here trying to, in the bar, still trying to get help, Harlan, while all this is going on outside. And so, she was able to get him to the point where the force field was down, and he was kind of, you could still kind of, I guess, exuding his power, but it wasn't as destructive. And so Vanya was able to focus her attention on helping her family. So she flies out, and she basically gets this huge explosion, and she takes out all of the agents. Okay, she takes out all of the agents. And so the thing that they realize is like, okay, they stand up and they're like, okay, wait a minute, why there's this, now they can see there's this force field around Lila and the handler, her mom. And they're trying to figure out so what is going on? What do they have going on down there? And so Lila, next you know, she's floating, and she basically sends the blast back to them, and it kind of blew them back, and it scattered them all over the place. So Allison ended up in like some hay bed that's in the back of this truck. Luther ends up in the house. I forget where Klaus ended up. I think Vanya was just knocked to the ground, and so the handler, her mom told her, okay, just kill all of them, just make it quick or whatever. Anyway, just finish. She tells her to finish the job, and so while Luther is now in the house, number 5, they're talking, and the house is obviously at this point is unstable. You got all them damn. It was already shot up, and then the 2 explosions, power burst, or whatever you want to call it. So the chimney, I'm assuming that was part of the chimney, it collapsed. And so number 5 pushed Luther out of the way, and he caught the brunt of all the bricks that were falling down. So next thing you know, Lila appears in the house. And Luther kind of steps in, and she basically tells him on out of so Lila's ability is that she's able to use whatever that power is against you. So the strength that Luther had, she was able to turn against him, and she ended up tossing him on out of the house like a rag doll. So Allison runs over to help Luther, and a fight ensues between Allison and Lila. Lila, I mean, she was able to hold her own, but she didn't expect Lila to use her. Well, did I say Lila? Allison was able to hold her own, but she didn't expect Lila to be able to use her power against her. And so she says, I heard a rumor that you couldn't breathe. So now Allison is choking. Luther is now distracted because he's trying to help Allison snap out of whatever this trance or whatever these people go in when she uses her ability. And Lila is now she went back into the house, and now Lila and 5 are fighting. And I mean, he's holding her own, but it's like you can't really fight what you're not. They don't really understand her ability, and they're still like trying to figure out like what is she? Like they don't really know. And so this time she was getting the best of him. The handler then goes into the house and she attacks Sissy. She basically knocks her out, and then she walks over to Harlan. Harlan is now huddled up in the corner. He's scared to death. He don't really know what's going on. And she starts talking to Harlan. Next you know, Diego, he's been kind of incapacitated because when Lila used did her little Kamehameha, whatever that was, that her and Vanya was trading back and forth, it caused the tractor to fall over, and it fell on Diego's leg. So he was kind of stuck this whole time. He was stuck. So now they're all running to try to help him. And so now they're standing around talking like, what the hell is Lila? And like, what exactly, who is she and where is she from? And then Vanya says, well, if she can do what we can do, then maybe she's one of us. And so they started thinking, and it was like, well, maybe, it's possible that if, we came out of nowhere, so it's possible that there are other children out there with abilities that should have been with us, but that didn't happen. And so now Lila and 5, they now have teleported into the barn, and they're still going at it. And Lila starts talking to him about her parents, how he killed her parents, and he was like, I don't even know who you are, what are you talking about? And so she started explaining what was going on, the situation, and he remembered the people. And he was like, it was the handler that gave the kill order. And she was thinking he was AJ. She's like, no, your mom gave a fake kill order, and she actually went on the mission with us. But that normally policy is they do not go on missions with us, but for some reason she made it a point to be there. And so now he's explaining to her, okay, so it's starting to make sense to him now why she had those particular people killed. She wanted access to Lila the whole time because she knew Lila was special. And there, so now the other siblings have come in, and they're like, well, she's been using you, she never, really loved you, but of course she doesn't want to, she's having a hard time coming to that conclusion. It was like, well, no, she did this on purpose. She was the one, basically, for all your hurt and pain that has to do with your family, your parents being murdered. She was the person who pulled the strings. And so the next thing you know, gunfire rings out, and they all shot up, and they all laid out, and they've been killed. So we look, they pan over, and this handler, she whipped out this machine gun and shot all of them dead. And so Lila is now standing there like, okay, is what they're saying true? Did you ever love me? And so she was like, basically she's telling her, I think you need to think carefully about what your next move is going to be, and if you're either with me or you're against me. And she ends up shooting and killing Lila. Okay, and then number 5 is still moving, and so she walks over like she's about to shoot him in his damn head. And as you know, more bullets start flying out, and she got shot the hell up. And it was the Swedish guy who's obviously pissed about the loss of his brothers, and it was all again orchestrated by her. So now she's dead, and now this guy, he's standing over number 5, like, okay, is he gonna pull the trigger? Is he not? And then number 5, he started having these flashbacks of the conversations of being able to jump, and the conversation he had with his dad about why don't you try something small instead of doing decades, try seconds. And so he went back maybe 10 seconds. He went back just before she came in and started shooting everybody, and he was able to stop her from killing his siblings, but he wasn't able to save her because the Swedish guy still killed her ass. And Lila ends up taking the case, the time traveling case. Luther tries to get to her before she could leave. Diego jumps in the way and stops her, and now Lila is in the wind. And so of course Luther was like, why would you do that? Like, we need this case to get home. And Diego, because I love her. And I'm just like, Diego make me sick sometimes. But so after that, so Lila is now in the wind. The handler is now dead. And number 5, and so for a minute, number 5, there was a standoff between number 5 and the Swedish guy, and eventually number 5 dropped his gun. The Swedish guy dropped his gun, and he just left. And so Sissy is calling out for help because the power, I guess, Harlem's powers are now starting to kind of grow again, and she's like, okay, Vanya goes in. And Vanya is like, okay, she's now absorbing whatever power it is that she gave him. And she was able to avert, round 2 of that whole situation. And so for all intents and purposes, Harlan is back to normal. So Herb eventually shows up with one of the other agents from the case management team, and they see all the agents all sprawled across. And number 5, Herb asked him about the handler, and they was like, "Oh, is she dead?" He was like, "Well, yeah, she is dead. For real this time." And they were like, "Yeah." And so Herb said that he was acting director for the time being. And they asked him if he was able to help them get a case. And he looked around, and it's like 200 dead agents on this field, and they all have their own case. So he was like, just pick one. So Vanya ends up going to the house to talk to Sissy, and she still wants Sissy to come, her and Harlan to come with her. But Sissy was basically like, I can't do that. He's been through a lot. I need to do what's best for him. It's too scary. Like, what if he gets separated? Like, it was just way too much for her to risk. And she was like, I need to think of him. I need to put him first. And so, of course, Vanya was hurt, but I mean, she had to understand. And they said their goodbyes. Raymond, he arrives home, and I guess he could see some things were out of place, and there was this book, and this book had a letter, and it was a letter written to him, and she was basically saying how they averted the apocalypse, but they weren't able to save Kennedy, and by the time he's reading this, she's long gone. And kind of went on to what what he can. Things that she explained, that things are going to get worse before they get better, but eventually they will. They do get better. And while he's reading over this letter, you're kind of seeing flashes of how everybody else is doing. So you got Diego and Vanya. Was it Diego and Vanya sitting on the porch? And you got You had the assassin. He's kind of like hitchhiking or something, and of all the people, Klaus followers in that damn Sweet Pickles van, whatever the hell they caravan they got, they stopped and asked him if he wanted to travel with them, and so he went on and got in with them hippies. I was like, oh boy, okay, that's gonna be interesting. And you saw Sissy, and she's in the car and she's headed to Mexico. And in the back you see that things are not as they appear with Harlan. Because you can see that he had some like wooden toy or something that he was making levitate, and she couldn't see it, but he's in the back seat, like you could see, like, okay, Harlan he's still different, he's still a little different. So like, oh boy, what is that going to bring in, in like 50 years, 40, 50 years? What is that gonna that's gonna be interesting. I can imagine they're gonna run into him. So they all get together and they eventually go back to their regular time. They look at the paper, they realize they get back a day after the apocalypse, so the world wasn't destroyed. And so they notice, okay, there's some things that's different. So instead of their father's photo being over the fireplace, it was Ben's photo. And so their father comes in and starts talking to them, and they're like, they're obviously shocked to see him, because before they left, the reason they came together was to plan his funeral. And they're like, what's going on here? You're alive. And he's like, well, yeah, what else? What did you expect? And they were, Allison, I forget, oh my God, I can't remember what the exact conversation was, but Allison was like, this is the Umbrella Academy. He was like, no, this is actually the Sparrow Academy. And they're all sitting looking, and then Ben walks in, and he's like, Dad, who the hell are these people? And there was like 5 other people on the landing. You couldn't really make out who they were, but they're all standing there, and now they're like, oh shit, what else done happened? What else done happened? So that's basically how the season ended. I wonder if we're ever going to see number 5 out of that short set. That's a bit much. I wonder, yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see what they're gonna do with his character, because that's okay. It's time. It's been 2 seasons of him wearing the exact same thing. But anywho, that's how the season ended. It was good. It was okay. It was good. I mean, I don't know I'm not really sure if I was expecting more, but maybe I was just expecting something different. But anywho, I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys later.